In order to begin using JobMaster software, the first step you should take is to click on the Setup button. That takes you to this screen where you can fill in your relevant company information. This is a critical first step inasmuch as this information is used by the software in invoices and other areas and will not produce invoices and other reports unless your company data has been entered. I will now click on OK and we'll move on to the next item. Password maintenance we recommend as the second step in your setup process. Clicking on password maintenance takes you to this screen. You'll be issued a generic password with JobMaster when you receive your program. We would recommend that your first step is to change this generic password to a password of your choosing for management. We will now click on Exit and proceed on to the actual setup of the program itself. The next step to be taken, and this is not unique to JobMaster, is to enter certain basic information that the software needs to operate. On the right-hand side of the main menu of JobMaster, under the title Lists, are a series of buttons. These buttons are used to open screens into which basic data can be entered to allow JobMaster to function, produce quotes, sales orders, shop travelers, and so forth. The first button that we will look at is Material Inventory. Clicking on the Material Inventory button brings us to this screen. And now I'd like to take just a moment to discuss the features of JobMaster's inventory control system. JobMaster's inventory control setup allows operators to check in materials, enter materials, or check materials out directly from this screen and to adjust inventory if an actual physical inventory is taken directly from this list of materials screen. Materials can also be received against a purchase order in the purchase order area, which we will get to in just a moment. As you can see from this initial screen, which appears when you click on the Materials button, materials can be located by entering the material number or the name of the material, or simply by using the slider bar to locate a particular material item. By clicking on the material item, this lower screen shows the transactions that have taken place on that particular material. I'll click on material number 102, for example, and you'll notice that the information here has changed. Click on 103, and you'll see here that the material information has changed here to reflect what has actually happened to this material. From this area, materials can also be entered into inventory for the first time. I'll go ahead and click on material number 101, aluminum sheets, so we can take a look at how this material was originally entered into inventory. I'll click on Edit so we can see the material already entered and the data fields filled out. For most examples that I use here, I will click on the Edit button so we can look at fields that are already filled rather than starting and filling them out from scratch. As you can see, materials can be entered into inventory with a material number, the name of the material, the preferred vendor for that material, who can be selected from a drop-down list, which we'll be getting into in just a few moments, the date the material was originally entered, quantity on hand, price, unit, and so forth. These three data areas, minimum level, maximum level, and reorder quantity, give an operator and a business the means to truly control inventory levels. The operator can set the minimum level of inventory of this type to have on hand, the maximum level to have on hand, and the reorder quantity. By setting a minimum level for each material as it's entered into inventory, the operator of JobMaster can ensure that their business will not run out of a particular material during the course of production. When a work order or shop traveler is created, if the use of a particular material for that work order or shop traveler depletes inventory to at or below the minimum level for that material which has been entered here, JobMaster will immediately flag the operator and give the operator an opportunity to create a purchase order right then to order more of this particular material. The maximum level data field protects a business against having too much of a material item in inventory and thereby tying up money needlessly. A maximum level for each material item in inventory can be set, and if a purchase order is issued which includes that material and the amount ordered exceeds the maximum level the business wishes to have on hand, JobMaster will flag the operator. A business may also have an exact reorder quantity that they want ordered each time that a particular material is reordered. That reorder quantity can be set here, and JobMaster will flag the operator when a purchase order is issued. We'll now click on OK and move back to the main screen. In this materials entry area, this button, Print List of Materials, will produce with one mouse click a list of all the materials with all details which have been entered into the inventory system. Clicking on this button, Print Materials to Order, will produce a list of all materials which have fallen below the minimum reorder points as set by the operator when the materials were entered into the system. These buttons, Check In, Check Out, Return, and Delete Transaction, allow an operator with a supervisory password to check materials directly into inventory from this screen, as opposed to having to go through receiving them against a purchase order, to check out materials from this screen, to return materials that have been checked out but not used, or to delete a specific transaction. We'll click on the Check-In button now to take a look at how that works. I should mention that to check in, check out, or return a particular material into inventory here, the operator simply needs to select it from the list of materials at the top of the screen. As you can see, I have highlighted material number 101 with a mouse click, and I will now click on Check In, as I mentioned, and we're brought to this screen. The basic material information of the material I've selected appears here. The transaction type check-in appears here. The quantity is simply entered by the operator here. The person's name who has signed into JobMaster using their password appears here. The transaction date is the default date of the day that the material was entered into the system here. And the expiration date is the expiration date of the material if that applies. I'll now click on OK. And as you can see, if I did not enter a material quantity, the screen demands that I do so. So rather than go ahead and enter a new quantity here, I'll just click on Cancel. Checkout works the same way. The material is selected from the list, the transaction type is checkout, the person, the checkout amount, the checkout date, and so forth. All of these transactions go into the transaction history, which appears down here, of each particular material that is checked in, checked out, or returned using this screen area. A return works the same way, only it's tagged as return. And a delete transaction button allows someone with a supervisory password to actually delete a particular check-in, check-out, or return transaction. We'll now close out of this screen and move on to the next button. The next button we will use to enter the information JobMaster needs in order to function is labor charges. Clicking on this button brings us to this area where an operator can describe the various types of labor that are used to create a company's product and to list the per hour rate for that labor. These labor charges will be used in the creation of quotes and sales orders, among other things, and can either represent the exact cost per hour that a company pays out for a particular kind of labor, or can include a markup for overhead and other factors on a per hour basis. The sales order and quote areas do contain a worksheet to develop quotes and sales orders on a line item basis and allow for markup of each labor item as well. We'll be showing you that in a few minutes. We'll go ahead and close out of here and move on to the next area. The Other Charges button brings an operator to an area that works the same as labor charges. In this area, an operator enters a description and a rate for all other types of charges that are generated in the manufacturing of their company's product. These charges and descriptions are used in the development of quotes and sales orders later on. We'll close out of here and go on to the next item. The Ship Via button allows an operator a quick and easy means to build a drop-down menu of approved shippers, which is then used by the shipping module of JobMaster. Clicking on the Ship Via button brings us to this screen where the approved shipping organizations can be entered. And these can be shipping organizations used by the manufacturer or approved shipping organizations by a customer who wants the manufacturer to use them to ship product to them at their expense. And again, the shippers entered here along with the account number are used by JobMaster in the shipping module when product is to be shipped to a particular customer. We'll go ahead and close out of here and move on to the Terms button. The Terms button, which we'll now click on, allows an operator to enter the various terms that their company uses when customers are billed. This is also used for vendors if vendors have specific terms. This goes into a drop-down menu which is used later on in JobMaster. I'll go ahead and close out of here and we'll move on to the next button, which is Operations. When a work order or shop traveler is created in JobMaster to handle the production of a particular product, each operation required to produce that product is listed or can be listed on the shop traveler or work order in the sequence that it has to be performed. In addition, each operation can have printed out with it a detailed description of exactly how to perform that operation. When a work order or shop traveler is created in JobMaster, the operations to perform the work described on that work order or shop traveler are selected from a drop-down menu. That drop-down menu is created from items entered here by clicking on the Operations button, which we will do now. This brings us to the screen called Operations and Inspection Codes. This is where the individual operations required to produce products are entered by the operator when setting up JobMaster and described in detail as to exactly how to perform them. These operations, as I say, are then available on a drop-down menu when an actual work order or shop traveler is created. As you can see, an operation can be entered by code number or name, if you'd care to use a name, a complete description of everything that is involved to perform this operation, and whether or not this particular operation requires an inspection before the people producing the product move on to the next step. Let's go ahead and click on Edit now, and we can look at exactly how this information is entered. Clicking on Edit takes us to this screen, which shows us how the information was entered for this operation. This operation was entered by code number, but it could have just as easily been a name, polishing or burnishing or whatever. And the description down here is only one word, but it can be very extensive. This is a very lengthy memo field. It is, in fact, an entire memo. And whatever is entered here in the description or method to perform this operation, which in this case is number 2, will print out on the work order if this operation is selected. You can see here there's a checkbox which the operator can check if this particular operation requires an inspection before the production moves to the next stage. Box can be checked or unchecked. We will now cancel out of here and move back to this screen and cancel out of here, which takes us back to the main screen and the next button, which is Preferred Status. Clicking on the Preferred Status button, which I'll do now, brings us to an area where quickly and easily the operator can build a drop-down menu which is used when vendor information is entered later to rate the vendor. In this case, as examples, we've used high, inactive, low, medium, as to the preferred status of a particular vendor. In this manner, if there are multiple vendors for a particular material item for inventory, say, the vendor can be rated so that a vendor can be selected if that's one of the criteria based on the rating that shows up from the drop-down menu created here in Preferred Status. I will now close this area and we will move on to Sales Rep. By clicking on the Sales Rep button, which we'll do now, the operator is brought to an area where they can enter the information for each sales representative in the company by ID number, by name, and by the commission percentage. Now the commission percentage that's entered here becomes the default commission for each salesperson. In other words, when this salesperson enters a sales order, this is automatically the commission rate that they get. However, this commission rate can be modified by someone with a management password on each individual sales order if that management person so desires. So if the default percentage here on our example, David Stromberg, is 25%, on a particular order which David Stromberg turns in, management may want the commission, say, to only be 10%. And that can be changed on an individual order basis if management so decides. By clicking on the Edit button here, we can see that the entry of this information is very simple. The rep ID is simply entered, the rep name, and the default commission percentage. I'll now click on OK. We'll close this area, and we'll move on to the last button under the lists area, which is the setup area, which is cert statements. Many manufacturers and job shops need to produce certifications or cert statements for the various products that they produce. By clicking on the Cert Statement button, JobMaster provides a means to create those cert statements and make them available on a one-click basis when product is shipped or work orders are completed. By clicking on the Cert Statement button, which I will now do, the operator is brought to this area. As you can see, there are a variety of certificates listed here already, which we've created for example purposes. And these are available on a drop-down menu in shipping and at the completion of the work order shop traveler process. So when product is actually going to be shipped, if a certificate is required, which is noted on the shop traveler or work order, the certificate can simply be selected from a drop-down menu, printed out, and sent along with the product. This is where certificates are created for the drop-down menu and for use from the drop-down menu. The operator simply clicks on New, types in the certificate and creates it in whatever form they desire, saves it, and that certificate then becomes available, however it's named, on the drop-down menu in the shipping or shop traveler area of JobMaster. I will now close this area and close the cert area, and we will move on to the next area of JobMaster. It should be noted as we leave the lists area, material inventory, labor charges, other charges, and so on, that these items can only be entered here in the lists area. They cannot be entered at various points in JobMaster, such as in the work order shop traveler area or in the sales order area and so forth. In other words, labor charges, as an example, cannot be entered in the quote or sales order area. They must be taken from a drop-down menu. And the only way they can get into the drop-down menu is to be entered here, under the lists drop-downs. The same is true for material inventory and all the other items listed under these buttons. The reason for this is management control. By not allowing such things as materials, labor charges, terms, operations, and so forth to be entered on the fly as JobMaster is used, JobMaster ensures to management that only approved inventory, charges, operations, and so on are used, as they must be taken from drop-down menus. And the only way that those items can get into drop-down menus is for them to be entered by using the buttons under the list category that we have just examined.